you seem to understand. I'm not locked in here with you.
That's it! You're locked in here with me.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
All right. What is it? Is it Friday? Is it Friday night? I think it must be. All right. Friday night, Radio Baloney Live. I'm your host, Richie Baloney. How's everybody doing? Hope you had a good week. I am tired. I am tired tonight. I've got lots of rant juice going, but I am tired. Let's see how this goes. I also got hit in the head with a ball earlier. So I don't know. Maybe my brains are rattled. Maybe I'm just slowly falling into a coma. I don't know. But we'll see how it goes. We'll do our best. How about some of this? How about some of this? I need some of this. Oh, rant juice. You got to love that. All right, quickly before we get to the chat, we're just going to go to the menu really quickly. And we're going to talk about the tariffs. Trudeau was crying again. We've got a bunch of, some research around this going on. We've got some ideas. We've got DOGE. We're going to talk about Pierre Poilievre and what I think of what his approach to this whole tariff thing is. We're going to take a look at Canadian polling and see if this is affecting the election at all in Canada. It may well be. We're going to talk about Marx as in Karl Marx, Carney. And everything, this man has a real problem just not bullshitting constantly. We're going to get some more Canadian stuff. Elizabeth May wants to form a coalition. Elizabeth May is the leader of the Green Party of Canada. Crazy far leftist Green Party. Also, she seems to have a bit of a drinking problem. It just seems like that. I would know. I can spot it from a mile away. I know from experience. Wants to form a coalition with the Liberals and the NDP to just make sure that Canada is totally dismantled and destroyed. We've got a little bit here on Ukraine, Russia. We are going to take a deep dive into what's going on with the so-called gender-affirming care, a euphemism if you've ever heard one before. It's actually exactly the opposite of what it does. It's actually the real conversion therapy, so-called gender-affirming care. We're going to take a deep dive into this. There's another study that's come out, and how long? I mean, we have to state first off that now Trump has banned the government in the United States from having anything funding it in any way, although it will still happen. For how much longer this will happen before it's just completely and utterly banned in the United States? Of course, in Canada, it just any kind of reality is just water off a duck's back. But anyway, we'll get into that. I've got a bunch of stuff, bunch of articles. The whole thing is already, in terms of science, it's already completely collapsed. We'll go through it. I'll give you lots. It's going to take us a while. But it's something that has to be done. And then to the final tab where we just go through a bunch of stuff. We've got memes and all kinds of just random stuff mixed up all in here. We'll see how we do. We'll see if I make it this far. That's too big. That's too big. I mean, I like some, some decent headlamps, but that's too much. That's too much. That's too much fun. That's too much of a good thing. Those things are probably they're probably like basketballs, like overinflated basketballs. And we got Bill Nye doing a Nazi salute. So I didn't realize that Bill Nye is obviously a Nazi, obviously doing a Nazi salute. I mean, that can be nothing else, right? That's what we've learned. That's what we've learned from Elon Musk. It can be nothing else. Nothing else. It's the only explanation. Bill Maher is a Nazi doing a Nazi salute to those people who are enjoying it. They're all obviously Nazis as well. All of those people. It's unbelievable. And he calls himself a man of science. Katie Hopkins from the UK. She is great. She's got a, Bonkers Britain, I think she calls it. Yeah, batshit Bonkers Britain report. She does a great job. We've got lots of stuff, crazy people, dingbats, goofballs, all the usuals. All right, a lady trying to get up on a horse there. The horse is quite a gentleman, actually, quite a gentleman. I think Rosie said that. Rosie, well, I remember I have now got that video on my computer. I have not put the music to yet. I've just been too busy, but I'm going to get to it soon, and I very much appreciate you doing that for me. And I will soon have a really cool merch video up soon, maybe at the end of the weekend. We've got some, I get dingbat. We got Joe Rogan there. We've got some more memes. We've got all kinds of stuff, all the usual crazy stuff. When we need a palate cleanser, when we just go to the chat, we're doing something else. We'll have something educational on, something like women's sports. We all like sports. We've got cooking shows as well, as you can see. Excellent cooking. If you like sandwiches, this is the show for you. Of course, we have a little something for the ladies. Not that the cooking shows aren't for the ladies as well, but we've got something else for the ladies as well. We've got Chuck Norris here. We've got the Fonz. We've got Kurt Russell. Let's get to the chat. All right, so who we got in here? Let's do the roll call. We got Rumbum. Good to see you. We got Spambot. We got Rosie. We got Izzy, Nevada, Rumbum, Radio Streamer, Izzy. We got, in fact, let's go even further back. The chat. Yes, we've got all the regulars are already here, or most of them anyway. Good to see you guys. All right, so what the hell are you guys talking about? Let's go back and check out the chat, then we'll get started with the show. For as long as the show lasts tonight. I don't know. I'm kind of tired and just what's going on in Canada. It's just depressing, I've got to say. It's just damn depressing. Let's see. Who got the first like? Who got the first like tonight? This first like gets double good karma. Looks like Izzy got the second. But it's not the first. It's not the first. Spambot says, why can't I replay the Tuesday stream? So the Tuesday stream, we did the first 3.5 hours regular, and then we did the last hour and a half Rumble Premium. I have to do 5 hours a month of Rumble Premium live streaming to be a part of the creator. There's a new creator program, and I'm happy to tell you it's working. I'm actually been picking up new subscribers. It's actually at a rate that I haven't in a long, long time. So it's actually working. So I want to stay in this, but I have to do 5 hours out of my live streaming in a month to stay in the program, and then 30 hours of live streaming. But we do that easily anyway. And I believe the way it works is that when I do that, so when I change it to premium, somewhere at some point in the stream, the part up until then, which would have been 3.5 hours on Tuesday, stays free or not. I mean, it's always free, right? It's all really what the premium then, that last part, you need premium to watch it. I think. I don't know. Let's see. Spambot saying had to tap out early. It won't allow me to rewatch, even though I am a premium supporter. Well, that shouldn't be right. Let's see. Let's see. Sandbagging Joker and moving a Better Bachelor. What's moving? So is there a thing like people watch movies and then you just kind of chat and he comments through the movie? Because that actually might be kind of fun. I wouldn't mind doing that at some point. See, Izzy says seems to be working for him. Let's see. Nevada says, I hope he doesn't do premium bullshit tonight. No, we're not doing premium tonight. No, it's going to be like 3 times a month, right? And because I got to do it. And I promised that I wouldn't cut into the regular time that I normally do. It'd be extra time, right? Like Tuesday, 3.5 hours. That's longer than we normally do on a Tuesday night, right? That was extra value even before. So don't worry, JJ. You're going to be good tonight. Let's see. Spambot says Better Bachelor movie night is going on and Joker is getting slammed. Joker's got to do a hot sauce challenge before the night is out. I'm not doing any hot sauce challenges. I consider a movie night, though. It's like an extra bonus night or something. By the way, I like Better Bachelor. I think he's good. I haven't watched him much lately. I don't watch as much as I used to because I'm spending a lot of time either live streaming or getting ready for a live stream. But yeah, I mean, he's great. He's awesome. Rosie says, I think he needs to log out and restart premium stream if they are back to back. Yeah, I think you're right, Rosie. I've been thinking about that. Just stop it and then go back in. Maybe you have 2 thumbnails ready before I go live. One that has like a big premium thing in the thumbnail so people know. Let's see. All right. Radio Streamer says, get in here, rando peeps. We don't bite much. Yes, where are those rando peeps? We need those. We need more of those. Let's see. All right. Hey, welcome in, Metal Detectorist. Good to see you. We welcome all randos into the stream. Dramus was got first on X. Very nice. Very nice. That's double good karma for you. Double good karma. You're not going to turn that up. Let's see. Spambot says, for Joker movie night, every $100 in tips, he adds a shot to his drink count. See, I can't do that. Because going on almost 7 years ago, before then, I was just doing shots constantly anyway. I was waking up in the morning and just doing shots. So in a kind of leaving Las Vegas kind of way, I guess, something like that. So yeah, I'm afraid there's not going to be any of that. Maybe Neocitrin, but then I'd be falling asleep. So no, I don't think it's going to work. Let's see. Premium movie night, Nevada says. Yeah, maybe we'll do a premium movie night. That'd be fun and not too much work for me, which would be good. I don't have to do any research or anything beforehand. All right, Eve Samard, good to see ya. Over on YouTube there. You're going to have to make sure you come join us after we shut down the YouTube part. Yeah, so right now we're streaming on Rumble, YouTube, X, and Locals. The YouTube part of it will probably be cut off in, I don't know, 45 minutes or something like that, and we'll continue on with the other platforms for obvious reasons, obvious YouTube, CommyTube reasons. We have to do that, I'm afraid. It's just the way it goes. And I think they'll for sure miss out on the deep dive that we do into the WPATH gender affirming care lunacy, total and utter lunacy. All right. So where are we going first? What are we doing first? I think we're all caught up now. All right. Spambot, don't try and send everybody over to Better Bachelor. Don't. They keep them here on my show. I'm going to read ads to them, for God's sakes. I like Better Bachelor. I think he's great. But, I mean, my show. Don't be poaching my people. Oh, Travis is already here. Okay, well, thank you, sir. Let's see. All right, well, let's get started. So, Trudeau, can he just stop crying? He's cried a number of times. I'd really like it if he just stopped crying because it's all such bullshit. From Rebel News, a teary-eyed Trudeau says his government, quote, will not let Canadians down. Well, it's a little bit late for that, Justin. All right, let's take a look.
On a personal level, I've made sure that every single day in this office, I put Canadians first, that I have people's backs.
Yeah, the problem is he keeps putting knives in the backs. That's the problem. We'd rather you didn't.
And that's why I'm here to tell you all, we got you. Even in the very last days of this government, we will not let Canadians.
Yeah, that's what they said when they froze the bank accounts too. We got you. Yeah, anyway, yeah, again, we'd rather you didn't have us.
Down today and long into the future. Because in the past few weeks, we've been working with our provincial and territorial partners to make sure that families can rely on this system, not just for years to come, but will allow this system to lock in, to become something that no government, a year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now, could ever go back on.
Oh, well, that sounds really democratic. We know that he loves democracy, right? Censorship, freezing bank accounts, crushing political dissent, but democracy, though. That's when he says democracy, that's what he means, right? Everybody just has to do what he says. That's democracy to him. Anyway, let's continue.
On a personal level,
he's been working with the premiers to allow this system to lock in because it's something that no government could ever go back on. Well, what if there's a need to? Like, what if we need to, get rid of a program? Maybe it's just not needed anymore. Maybe the country is wealthy enough that we don't need the programs that had to be brought in because nobody has any money anymore because of you. I mean, that's the thing with these leftists, like Trudeau, these progressive radicals, is that they wreck everything, and then they provide the solution to the thing that they wrecked, the problem that they caused. That just is Trudeau in a nutshell. It's just gone on for so long. I mean, he is going to be gone. He's hoping to replace himself with essentially himself, just an older version of himself. The guy who taught him everything he knows, Mark Carney, who will do the exact same things. Let's not forget that Mark Carney has been an advisor to Trudeau since at least 2020, at least since then. Maybe he's upset. He's emotional because he can't wreck the country anymore. He can't hurt Canadians anymore. I guess that's got to be it. Nothing else makes sense. He obviously doesn't give a shit about Canadians. He's proven that over the course of a decade. Let's see. He called Canadians names for over 9 years. This is from Josh Ryan. He arrested peaceful protesters. He has numerous ethics violations and cover-ups of his corruption. Today, he digs deep into his drama class training and manages fake tears on his way out the door. Nauseating. You know, that's a great word for it. There he is. Look at his red eyes there. Oh, poor Trudeau.
on a personal level, I've made sure that every single day in this office, I put Canadians first, that I have people's backs. And that's why I'm here to tell you all that we
it really is nauseating. It's grotesque, as a matter of fact. Grotesque. And it's acting anyway. Drama teacher. He's pulling out his old bag of tricks. What a load of bullshit. You know what this is all about? His response to the tariffs, all this nonsense, these theatrics here. This is about his legacy, right? This is about his legacy. This is about, he doesn't want the Liberal Party to go down in flames, to be totally and utterly destroyed after he steps down and gives way to Mark Carney. That's what all of this is. None of this is about Canada. This is not about the best way to deal with the tariffs, anything. This is about him. He doesn't want to wear that utter destruction of the Liberal Party that it looked very much like was coming before all of this. He doesn't want to wear that because of his ego. I'm convinced he clearly does not care about Canadians, because if he did, he would have stopped doing the things he's been doing. The things that clearly don't work. At least, I mean, they don't work if you're trying to help people. I mean, they work if you're trying to hurt people, but they don't work if you're trying to help. So all of these theatrics, this is about his legacy. He doesn't want to go down as a loser, as a big, big loser who's hated. He will. I do not think that the Liberals actually do have a chance of winning this election, this next election that will be coming up at some point. We don't know when it's going to get called, but I don't think he actually has a chance of winning it. Mark Carney, I'm talking about. But that's and I think he will lose quite badly too. I think at the end of the day, the problems are still the problems. The issues are still the issues. And the solutions are still the solutions. And I just don't see, however many more years of more of what Justin Trudeau has been doing, which is what Mark Carney will do, right? I think that Pierre Poilievre is going to have a much, much better argument and a much more believable solution, aside from the fact that Canadians get sick of political parties after 10 years. But we shall see. We shall see. So let's get back to the chat for 1 second. I'll just take a look at what you guys are saying. Dramus Eve says, is it legal to hate a China? Still now. If Mark Carney gets in, he'll make that illegal. Mark Carney will immediately get onto the censorship stuff that Trudeau has been working on so hard. He talks about misinformation, disinformation in his book. He has every intention of being an authoritarian, anti-free speech, essentially woke dictator. It's just a shame that nobody's going to actually read his book. Because if they did, they'd go, oh, this is just Trudeau. Oh, this is where Trudeau learned it from. Let's see. Spambot says, True China did not put Canadians first. Of course not. He put himself first all the time. Nevada says, True China. Of course that gets an applause. Nevada says, he's trying to sound like Trump. He's trying to play the tough guy. No matter what the effect on Canada is, clearly at this point now, he's just decided, he's looked at the polls and said, this is working. This will help prevent the Liberal Party going down in a humiliating crash in the next election. I think it's still going to happen. I got to be honest, but that's what's going on in his head. He wants to leave with the Liberal Party in good shape or still in power and then make a comeback in, 8 years or something like that. I believe that's what's going on in his head. He's thinking about his dad, right? What his dad did. Let's see. Nevada says he's like a tick dug in deep. 100%. Let's see. Rosie says, has never put Canadians first, except the teen Swifties and friendship bracelets. That was creepy. Tetra Pak, how you doing? Good to see you. Monthly grocery bill, $7,000 monthly housing expense, $20,000 vacation with the family, $165,000 equals democracy. That's Trudeau right there. Spambot says Pierre is better than True China. They call him True China, but Maxime is better than all. Maxime, just on his own rhetoric, is the best. I mean, he's the one making the most sense. Taking into consideration Canadian politics, I don't know. I mean, I just don't know. But yeah, I like what Maxime is saying best of all. Let's see. Tetrapack says true dumb. He's sneaky is the thing. He's sneaky. He's a sneaky snake, Trudeau. Let's see. MHJ35, good to see ya. Watching and enjoying. Not much to say, but Richie and the chat are entertaining. Thanks. Happy weekend. Well, happy weekend to you too. Nevada says he's going down like Biden. Well, Carney will lose. I am convinced of that. Because there are certain things that just haven't changed. The important things that are affecting people's lives haven't changed. All those things are still there. And there's no real, on the tariff stuff, there's not much difference in the rhetoric from Pierre and Trudeau and Carney. Anyway, the difference is on the kind of the back end of the rhetoric, of the saber rattling. in which case Pierre actually has good ideas, which should have been implemented. In fact, if they had been implemented, we'd be in a much years ago. If Pierre Poilievre had been prime minister the last 10 years, we would have been in a much better position to handle what's happening right now than we are now, because we would have built a friendly business environment. So companies wouldn't have been tempted to leave the country, at least not as much. We would have had investment come in. It would have been a different situation. We wouldn't be at the place we are now, which we have just zero margin for error. Zero. And that's a position that radical leftists like Trudeau always put a country in. They spend to the point where you just can't make a mistake. Any problem, anything unforeseen is really, really bad and potentially catastrophic, because they just spend as much and borrow as much to the point where you're crippled by just the interest payments for the debt. And you've got nothing, no room, nothing left over. You get nothing in the bank. All right. Let's see. Radio Streamer says, there's a story about Trugina working for lizard people government underground after falling into the earth. Too much for a grok story. That one might work. That one might work for later. That one might work. Remind me of that when we get to that. Let's see. Tetra Pak says, there's things even money can't buy, but for everything else, there is the Canadian taxpayer. Attributed to the Liberals. That's about it. Let's see. Nevada says, Trugina rolled around in black mud and looked like he had blackface on. Well, he would like it, is the thing. Raider Shimmer says, well, my story is set in a coal mine. The full body blackface was a coal mine. Coal mine. That's perfect for the grok later. Hold on. Coal mine. I sat down to try and come up with one earlier, and I just had nothing. So I appreciate that. That's good. Coal mine works. Let's see. For Justin Trudeau? Yeah. Let's see. Terry Conspiracy says, DOGE Canada. So, yeah, Canada needs a DOGE. I mean, that's a policy that is that's very popular in the United States, right? As much as the media is hysterical and deranged over it, for just normal people, like it's an easy sell, right? Like, here's all the stuff the government's been wasting your money on. We're going to stop wasting your money. That's an easy sell to the public, and it's not complicated. It's really hard to spin in a negative light. Of course, they're trying, but it's just hard to spin that negatively. It's just inherently good. MHJ is drinking from the Radio Baloney mug. Nice. That's right, everybody. You can get your own Radio Baloney mug. You can go to the shop on YouTube. You can go to the there's no mug on the Rumble store, which you can see there's a button on the channel. There's t-shirts there, but for other stuff, you can go to the YouTube one. Let's see. All right, let's get to the let's get back to this. Let's get back to the story. All right, 32 minutes. Okay. So now it's been a constant message. There has been mixed messaging, but the message that it's about fentanyl border, that has been a constant message, especially from Howard Lutnick. I think that's the Treasury Secretary for Trump. It has been a consistent message that the first round of tariffs would be around border control, fentanyl, all of that. The second round would then be dealing with the tariffs. And we'll get into all of that, and I'll show you some actual numbers on the tariffs. But let's hear what the RCMP has to say about fentanyl in Canada.
How many, to the RCMP, how many people do you estimate are involved in the production and distribution of fentanyl in Canada? Do you have like a ballpark estimate? Is it 1,000 people? Is it 10,000 people?
I don't have a ballpark figure on it.
So you have no idea how many people could possibly be involved in the fentanyl trade in Canada?
There's a significant group, a significant number of organized crime group, but if you're asking me for a specific number, I can't give you a specific number.
How many organized crime groups are involved?
Over 4,000 organized crime groups in Canada, as assessed by the Criminal Intelligence Service Canada.
4,000 individual organized crime groups, all with their own distinct leadership and membership?
That's correct.
How many, to the RCMP, how many people do you estimate?
So they've absolutely no idea how much fentanyl or anything else is going from Canada into the United States. I know they said, well, it's only 46 pounds. Well, 46 pounds is enough to kill 10 million people, right? It's like 2 grains of it can kill like a room full of people. So it's not as if it's not serious. It's not as if things haven't gotten out of hand, especially after Trudeau's just mass migration, the mass migration that he's inflicted on Canada, especially over the last, like 4 years. Right. So it's not like the Americans, they're just making stuff up. They're not. Now, I think one thing that would really help would be just a really, instead of hearing something from Lutnick and then hearing something from, or mixed things from Trump, just have a focused message would be really helpful in this situation. I think that really these tariffs are very counterproductive at the moment. And it's really coming at the worst time for Canada, right? Because is it helping the Liberals? I think that it is. And that's bad because a Liberal government it will be impossible for the Trump administration and the Liberal administration to really get along because it'll just be politics on the Canadian side the entire time. So I think this might have been better left till later and then just sat down and then just, a proper sit down negotiation diplomacy. I think that would have worked out better. Now, on the Canadian side, this has turned into a political issue, which I said it would a long time ago. And they're not going to let go of that. They see it as useful, right? And also the tariffs, they see the Liberal government, which is still in power right now and will be for we don't know how much longer, sees this as an opportunity to rake in a bunch of tariff money and then buy votes with it, which is not good, right? The smart thing to do would be to just not react, not impose those, because it's just a tax on the Canadians at this point. We're not going to win any trade war. That's just silly, right? We're a tenth the size of the United States. We're not going to win that. But all of a sudden, once there was money on the table, once they saw they could extract money from Canadians, I mean, there's nothing that Liberals like more than that, extracting money, right? Once they saw there was the ability to do that, and then they could use that for political expediency, even if it would hurt the country, of course they're going to do it. It's impossible for them to think any other way. All right, so what's going on right now? U.S. President Donald Trump said Thursday he is again pausing his tariffs on Canadian goods, offering the country yet another roughly month-long reprieve from a punishing 25% levy. But that's not quite the story. So, as of today, March 7th, the current state of Donald Trump's tariffs on Canada reflects a mix of implemented measures, adjustments, and temporary pauses based on the latest available information. So what tariffs have been implemented? So there have been tariffs implemented. 25% tariffs on Canadian imports, non-USMCA compliant. So those are products covered under the trade agreement from Trump's first term. Tariffs on goods from Canada that do not satisfy the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement rules of origin went into effect on March 4th, 2025. These tariffs were enacted under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to address concerns over illegal immigration and fentanyl trafficking. So, and that has been a consistent message, right? There's also been other statements mixed in with that about dairy products, that sort of thing. We'll get to the dairy product, Canadian dairy product tariffs in a second. But that has been if you listen to, Howard Lutnick, for instance, and also Trump himself has said this repeatedly. That's what the first round are about. There's going to be a second round starting April 1st or 2nd, or April 2nd, I believe, that are just purely around trade, not around drugs, border, that sort of thing. 10% tariff on Canadian energy resources, non-USMCA compliant. Energy products from Canada that fall outside of the USMCA preferences, such as oil and gas under specific HTS codes, are subject to a reduced 10% tariff rate, also effective from March 4th, 2025. This lower rate was designed to minimize disruptions to U.S. gasoline and heating oil prices. Okay. Pause on border tariffs initially threatened. Initially, Trump threatened a blanket 25% tariff on all Canadian imports starting February 1st. Okay, so that was paused. Hold on. So, USMCA compliant goods exempted. Trump adjusted the tariffs to exempt goods from Canada that qualify for USMCA preferences, meaning only non-compliant goods face the 25% tariff. So there's still tariffs, but it's not across the board. All right, so let's go here now. So if we're just talking tariffs, and we're not talking about the border measures, whether or not those were sufficient or not, clearly Trump doesn't feel that they were. Let's take a look at the highest tariffs Canada imposes on U.S. imports. Now, this all would have been covered in the original trade deal from Trump's first term. That needs to be said. But when he talks about massive tariffs on dairy, that is true. Now, this is after a certain quota is hit. So there's smaller tariffs leading up to this, but milk, 270%, cheese, 245%, butter, 298%, all things that are very expensive in Canada, by the way. Very expensive due to those tariffs. These tariffs apply to imports exceeding specific quotas under Canada's supply management system. Within quota limits, lower or zero tariffs may apply, but above quota imports face these steep rates to discourage oversupply. And again, this makes dairy much more expensive in Canada. Poultry, so chicken, up to 238%. This is also based on quotas as well. So there's a certain quota, a certain amount of chicken you can move across the border, and then the tariffs go really high. Eggs, 163%. Another thing that's super expensive. All these things are super expensive in Canada. Way more expensive than in the States. You've got agricultural products, barley, 57%, wheat, 94%, steel, 25%, aluminum, 10 to 45%. These are all much higher than the American tariffs. Much higher, all of them. So I understand why there's concern about it, right? Though, I get this was a deal from Trump's first term. That needs to be said. Now, approximately 75% of Canadian goods entered the U.S. tariff-free in 2023, amounting to roughly $550 billion in trade value. So 75% still entered tariff-free. What I really would like to see is just a total reduction in tariffs to the absolute minimum on both sides. Now, the Canadian tariffs are much higher than the U.S. ones. They have been. So the U.S. wouldn't need to remove the tariffs that much anyway from where they were before. But I would much rather see like a greater integration of the U.S. and Canadian economies, something moving towards that Fortress North America thing. I'm not talking about 51st state. Let me just say as well, the hysterical and retarded rhetoric I see on X, there are people pretending to believe that they think that Donald Trump is going to invade Canada. There are people who honestly actually believe this. Do you mean the guy who says he wants to be a peacemaker, the guy who's trying to force a peace negotiated settlement in Ukraine right now, and he's getting a lot of criticism for it? That guy is going to invade Canada? That's incredibly retarded. That's incredibly stupid. That's not going to happen. I think it's part of it. Well, we'll get to that in a second. But I think where all this actually ends up leading is to actually a further integration of the economies to form a kind of a North American bloc. I think that's where this is going. Let's go here for a second. So here is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. And I don't think these guys just I don't think that they get imaginative in these interviews. I think they know exactly what they're going to say, and I think everything has a purpose. I want you to listen to this.
When we look at tariffs, there's a lot of different things being talked about, proposed, threatened, even imposed. One of them is Mexico, which comes up next week. Is it important to get the revenue from the Mexico tariffs? Because I know Mexico is sort of moving, it appears right now, for example, with respect to tariffs on things coming into Mexico from China. Can they get off the hook on tariffs?
So the tariff negotiation isn't under the purview of Treasury. It's USTR, U.S. Trade Representative, and Commerce. So I'm going to leave that question to them. I do think one very interesting proposal that the Mexican government has made is perhaps matching the U.S. On our China tariffs. I think it would be a nice gesture if the Canadians did it also. So in a way, we could have Fortress North America from the flood of Chinese imports that's coming out of the most unbalanced economy in the history of modern times.
When we look at tariffs, there's a...
So he said a united front against China, Fortress North America. I think this is ultimately where Trump wants it to go. I think that so far, this has been a miscalculation, the tariff thing. I mean, it is how he operates. It's well documented. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, the way that Trump documents. I don't understand how people can pretend to not know. He comes out with the big ask, the unreasonable thing that kind of unbalances the person across the table. And then he comes down to something that'll work for everybody. And they'll feel happy to get it. Right. So 51st state, for instance, 51st state. Canada is not going to become the 51st state. Trump is not going to invade Canada. That's idiotic. It's idiotic to believe that. He is not going to invade Canada. Canada is not going to become the 51st state. All right. For one thing, the United States should not want Canada. For one thing, you'll just end up with like one big California voting Democrat every time, right? The United States should not want that. I mean, what about Quebec? Quebec, do you really want? I mean, if you want Quebec, I mean, I don't know. They're a little bit much to handle. They're a little ornery, right? I like the Quebecois. I like the fact that they stand up for their own culture. I think that's awesome. But they're a handful, and you basically have to bribe them to stay in your country. Ask Alberta about that. So no, that's all ridiculous. But I think that the truth starts to come out more with a statement like Fortress North America, where you have a united front, Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. against who? Against the United States' avowed enemy, China. They don't try and hide that, right? They want to take over, right? They want to become the global hegemon. They say that openly, right? Trump knows this. That's the really big picture. I think Trump looks over to Europe and he sees a basket case. He sees the EU as a basket case, right? J.D. Vance was sent over there to tell them, hey, look, if you're not going to actually be democracies anymore, if you're going to imprison people for dissenting online, for saying naughty words on the internet, if you're going to try and ban political parties, we're not aligned on that. Why would we be aligned with a bunch of totalitarian states? The EU is moving towards totalitarianism, as is the UK. That's not a natural ally. They're moving away from democracy, not towards it, or they're certainly not preserving it, right? So I think he looks to Europe, which is heading for serious social strife with what they're doing, which is right now Germany is deindustrializing itself over insane net zero gibberish, the kind that Mark Carney has been pushing. They have major energy problems there. They have major demographic problems there. The EU is a basket case. Canada would be insane to favor the EU over the guy right next to us, the guy right next door who's got the giant house and has all the money, right? What an incredible benefit to us being next door to the United States. But that's where I ultimately see it going through this language. Because if you watch Trump, we know what he does. It's the big ask, the shock and awe, unbalances, and then he comes down to something reasonable. We've seen that over and over and over again. I don't see how anybody can pretend to not see how it works. What Canada should be doing, because right now what we have is a total failure of Canadian diplomacy, a total failure. What Canada should be doing is acknowledging what we know, which is this is how Trump goes. We should be playing it cool. We should play it cool and see how it all unfolds and then work from there. Right? Retaliatory tariffs don't hurt the United States. I'm sorry. I don't mean to hurt Canada's confidence. They're not going to hurt the United States. Not in a way. I mean, if you really want a trade war, if Canada really wants a trade war, the US can give us one that we'll be sorry for. They just have so much more leverage. It's just obvious, right? I mean, Canada's economy, the United States economy, they're very different. So what I would like from the Canadian government and all of the Canadian leaders, by the way, is just keep it fucking cool. Cool heads prevail, right? Don't say stupid stuff. Just sit back, wait. Just everyday diplomacy, real diplomacy, serious diplomacy. Don't say stupid things. Justin Trudeau, don't go online. Don't do a news conference where you say that what Trump is doing is dumb. That's not going to work. That doesn't help. That's purely a political statement, a cynical political statement for back home. That's it. That's not diplomacy. Cooler heads prevail, do they not? Sit back and wait. Don't make stupid mistakes. We know how Trump acts. We know his MO, right? This should not be a surprise to anybody. Nevada says, can't we all just get along? That's what I hope. I mean, look, the idea that behaving as if it's our misfortune to be right next to the largest economy in the world and already very well integrated into it is idiotic. And that's especially this idea of like joining the EU that some people, I mean, yes, join the lunatic asylum. Let's do that. Great idea. Well, we've got the biggest economy in the world right next to us. All it requires is just real diplomacy by adults. We know there's something else behind this, right? We know that. Let's see. So we've already gone through the tariffs. Let's go back here again before we wrap this part up. How about this? So this is how badly it's going for the United States. 20 billion shipping investment from CMA, CGM, 10,000 jobs coming to America. This is how bad it's going. So this is a result of Trump saying, I'm going to put tariffs on everybody. Move your companies here. Right? Including Canadian companies, by the way. What Canada should be doing, and this is, Pierre's right on this, absolutely 100% right on this. We should be creating the best environment possible for companies in Canada to avoid this, right? They just announced another one. Was it $100 billion semiconductor plant going to be moved into the United States? The United States economy is going to be roaring in a year. Roaring. As more and more companies move in. Because of what he's doing right now. I mean, hey, Mark Carney's own asset management fund move to New York City, right? It's got to be pretty good. What's going on here?
I understand is the Americans had been proposing dropping some tariffs on Canada, or some tariffs if Canada had dropped its retaliation. According to a senior Canadian government source, the Prime Minister said no. He had said that Canada would only drop its retaliation if the U.S. dropped all of its tariffs. Then the U.S. proposed dropping some tariffs on USMCA compliant products, to which Canada had said that, okay, if that's going to be the case, Canada said it would be willing to delay the round 2 tariffs. Remember, Canada is going to introduce its retaliation in stages, that first initial tranche and then a second tranche, much larger tranche, a second one. So if that did happen, if the U.S. proposed dropping those tariffs on those USMCA compliant, so we've got a trade deal. If there's trade going back and forth and it is compliant with the trade deal, that could get that sort of across the line. And apparently, what I'm told, according to a senior Canadian government source, that is what Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, and Dominic LeBlanc.
All right, let's move on. So my personal thoughts on it are, shouldn't be any retaliatory tariffs. It's just going to hurt Canadians. All it does is put money into the Canadian government's pockets, the Liberal Party's pockets, while they dismantle the Canadian economy, in the hopes they can use it to buy some votes. That's 100% what's going on. So here's from March 6th. So that's yesterday. So here is Scott Bessant again.
As President Trump has said many times, tariff is his favorite word. I would say that reciprocal is probably his second favorite word. And I think we have to be open to the idea, if you want to be a numbskull like Justin Trudeau and say, oh, we're going to do this, then tariffs are going to go up. But if you want to sit back, have a discussion with the Commerce Department, USTR, they all have my phone number too. I am happy to have a discussion with our foreign counterparts that says that here's what we think you were doing. And the tariffs are the actual easy part. Because we know India does this on U.S. motorcycles. Germany does this or EU does this on American cars. That's a quantitative number. But also, what are non-tariff barriers? Apple cannot sell the new iPhone 16 because of local content laws in Indonesia. Are you manipulating your currency? Are you suppressing the value of that? Are you unfairly subsidizing select industries, either via bank lending or suppressing labor markets?
I think that so they're obviously taking this very seriously, and there's a lot more behind this than the teleprompter readers would have you believe. I think in the case of Canada, I think it comes down to Fortress North America. I think Trump is causing a bunch of hassle right now, the big asks, the 51st state, all of that stuff. And I think where it's leading to is he'll drop all of that shit, but we need to work together against China. And we need to have a kind of more harmonized North American border. Because what comes through the Canadian ports goes south through the border, right? Mexico is a whole nother issue, right? They basically have a parallel state there, a narco state. But I think on the Canadian part, I think that's probably where this is heading. I mean, this is speculation. I want to be clear. I don't know that, right? But I'm just looking at the way Trump operates and some of the things that have been said by his representatives. And I think that may be where this is going. Now, for as long as the Liberals are in power, how easy are they to work with? I think very difficult, because I don't think they want to solve problems. Right now, clearly, Trudeau in his final days is using this as a political, he's using it cynically for politics to try and save his party so that he doesn't go through the humiliation of being the guy who drove the Liberal Party into the ground, into total destruction, right? When Mark Carney loses the election. That's a legacy thing for him, I believe. And plus, I think he's going to want to come back, too. I think his narcissism knows no bounds. All right. Here's from March 5th. Here's Howard Lutnick again. He's the Commerce Secretary, I believe.
Secretary Lutnick, I'm a reporter from Canada. I'm curious, is there room for the tariff rate against Canada to drop?
I think there's going to be a discussion. Canada has offered us an enormous amount, again, to do better. And I think we're talking to the president, and I think there's some room, but we'll decide tomorrow. We're looking at all the offers that they've made, and I think there'll be room tomorrow, and we'll announce that tomorrow.
What is it exactly that you want, though?
Well, fentanyl deaths in America need to come down, right? It's black and white. Autopsy, fentanyl deaths in America need to come down. They need to come down from Mexico and Canada. You don't think, oh, Canada, the most terrorists on our watch list have come from the northern border. So you have to realize it's Mexico and Canada that fentanyl comes from, and we need it to go down. And I think Canada made us an excellent offer today, and we're talking to the president.
What do you mean by offer? What do you mean excellent offer? What does that mean?
More work on the border.
Like any
more
specifics?
Work on the border. No, lots of details. We're going through it together, and the president's thinking about that. We'll see what we do tomorrow. They're talking to us.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today said that Donald Trump is trying to cripple the Canadian economy in order to annex it. What do you say to that?
Justin Trudeau is running the end of his term, and I don't really want to think about the ridiculous things he's said in the last couple of days. It's sad. It's time for him to go, and let's move on, have a new government in Canada.
Justin, Canadians in this moment are extremely angry. What do you say to them?
I'd say to them, you can't have fentanyl come into America.
So, I mean, this stuff about annexing Canada. Look, annexing Canada would be a disaster for American conservatives. Okay, it'd be a major, major problem, right? You just end up having like Democrat governments forever after that. But what we see here is so regardless of what the teleprompter readers have been reading off their teleprompters, it's been a consistent message from people like Howard Lutnick, right? That the first round of tariffs are about the border, about fentanyl. Right, they're about security. They're about terrorists crossing the border, of which most of them actually came from Canada, not the Mexican border, into the United States. Right, so that's the first round is about, and it's been you guys know this because you've been watching, right? You've been watching the show. First round, there's been a consistent message that it's about the border. The next round in April is about trade itself, specifically about trade. But you hear these comments from Trudeau, from the Liberals, from leftists in Canada, and it's coming from a cynical place, in my opinion, because they like it. They like it. They've seen, these polls that are showing greater support. They'd rather win the election and rule over the ashes, right, than actually do the right thing. Let's see. John Fraser, why would we want to join the EU? They are a hot mess, barely holding it together. So what's going on here? Warren Kinsella, the push for Canada to join the EU will begin in earnest now, which will be yet another issue that will create big problems for the Poilievre Tories. Yeah, the EU is a disaster right now. The EU is a mess. It's a basket case. It would be the worst, stupidest thing. It would be the stupidest thing Canada could do, considering that we have access to the world's largest market right there, this giant border. Make it work. Diplomacy, real diplomacy, not politics, not political machinations. Rupa Subramania says they want a full-on trade war so they can cling to power, and many Canadians will go along like sheep. Yes, Team Canada. Hey, guess what? This isn't a hockey game, right? There's no overtime goal to take it. Like this, I feel like that's like, I feel like that's the kind of cynical play. Like, this is just Team Canada, the hockey team, right? Well, in our government, we don't have a Connor McDavid, right? Unfortunately, there's no Nathan McKinnon in our government, unfortunately. All right. And how about just this one last one here? Rupa Subramanya, why isn't Pierre Poilievre making the case for not retaliating against the U.S. when the economics is very clear that retaliatory tariffs on the U.S. will have minimal effect on them, but will be doubly devastating for Canada? Why is he in lockstep with Trudeau? I hate to say it, but it's politics. I mean, maybe he really believes it. Maybe he really believes it's the right thing to do, but I think it's almost certainly politics. I get it. I understand why. But I don't like it. I don't like it because it's counterproductive. Let's see. Canada with retaliation, the damage is much higher than without. Same thing with Mexico. It's just real diplomacy would be good. If stupidity was an Olympic sport, he would be sent for steroid testing. He would be. Also, maybe they might want to test his chromosomes as well while they're at it. Probably not a terrible idea. We all want to know. The great unanswered question. All right. So let's move on. Let's get to the chat for a little bit. We're an hour in. Let's see. All right. Let's see. All right, I'm going to go back a little bit in the chat because I think you guys have been saying a lot. All right, how far back can I go? How far back can I go? Let's see. All right, I'm going to stop here. Let's see. Brumbum saying he's been looking at housing in Alberta the last 2 days. Here's one thing that I will say in terms of 51st state stuff. If Mark Carney does win the election, I don't think that he will, but if he does, it might be a good idea to buy some property in Alberta and get registered there. Like, I don't know, get an address and you can say you're a resident of Alberta, just in case, because if Mark Carney wins, I mean, it's in his book. It's in his book that the transition, the net zero transition will be felt hardest in Alberta, but there'll also be all these opportunities. It doesn't say what. I mean, probably cricket farms, I guess. Maybe roadside carbon credit kiosks or something, but it will be a disaster. And he even admits it, right? That's fully his intention. He's all in. He ran the ESG, environmental social governance. So you got the environment stuff, you've got the net zero, you've got the woke, you got all in there. He was in charge of that for Brookfield Asset Management, finding woke investments to so people whose money he's controlling could make less money, I guess. I guess that's the point of it. But if he were to win, it would be a disaster for Alberta. He will try and institute his plans, his net zero plans. At that point, I could see very quickly a separatist movement happening in Alberta. History moves slow, and then really fast. And really earth-shaking events can happen very, very quickly once just everything is in place for it. So that's one thing where I could see that's a real possibility. And if you had a Trump or a JD Vance, I could see that happening. And of course, the United States has an enormous amount of geopolitical power. If you had a referendum in Alberta, I think you could. I mean, look, I think right now, if you took the vote, probably no. But give Mark Carney a chance. Let Mark Carney get his hands around the neck of Alberta and Albertans for a year or two. and see what happens. So that's one possibility. Is it likely? No, but that's a possibility. If it's gonna happen, that's how it would happen. If Pierre gets in, then it won't even be an issue because he will go full bore on Alberta energy, and Alberta will be much wealthier than it's been in a long time, if ever. All right. Let's see. Radio Streamer says they are not pretending to not know how it works. If they are stupid, then they actually don't know. Well, that's the other thing, too. They might just be stupid. Nobody accused Trudeau of being smart. Let's see. Rumbum says freedom doesn't get along with communism, so probably not. Yeah, it would be more of a problem than it'd be worth. What makes a lot more sense would be a bloc. So something kind of like the EU, although not as intrusive. But something like that, just a real agreement of like, okay, here is where the world is going. The world is shifting. The old order is changing, right? We have advantages, seas on both sides, giant oceans on both sides, an enormous amount of natural resources, fortress North America, absolutely makes sense, but we're going to have to be philosophically on the same page, is the thing. Which I think we can get there, but we'll have to see. But again, everybody keeps their sovereignty, but a bloc with mutual interests. And again, philosophically, everybody'd have to be on the same page of like, no, we don't accept managed decline, right? No, we're not communists, right? No, we're not authoritarian leftists. Let's see. Nevada says, I'm afraid that the UK and Germany are done. I think it's a very real possibility of civil war, multiple civil wars in Europe in the next 20, 30 years. Absolutely, I can see it. Let's see. Just with the demographic changes there and just very, very different cultures, without a kind of shared goals, like, in fact, conflicting goals. I think things get really nasty in Europe. Although, Sweden is now deporting more people than they're importing. They're actually paying they brought in something like 1 million refugees. They're paying them to leave. They're paying them like $30,000 to leave, but they say it's worth it. It's worth it. They're actually sending out more than they're bringing in. Denmark, I think, has also gone along the path of deciding not to destroy their country. It can be done, but Germany, I don't think will have the will. I think they would rather they'd sooner ban the AFD than they would allow them to win. UK seems to be totally hopeless. I mean, maybe with reform looks like they may form the next government there, but will reform be enough? I don't know. Radio Streamer says the U.S. could literally just cut off Canada in a trade war, and in 3 months we wouldn't even notice here. Yeah, that's the reality. Let's see. Tetrapack says, LOL, cue Woodstock music. Alberta is so expensive. Everywhere is so expensive in Canada. Everywhere. Let's see. Nevada, how much for 40 acres in Alberta? I'd say roughly $8 trillion. Although actually Alberta it has been cheaper. I'm not sure what it is. I think the prices have been going up steadily there. Let's see. JDL says, I'm of French-Canadian descent. Well, then can I say, tabarnak, sacre bleu. That's all I know. Also non and we. That's it. That's all I know, unfortunately. And I'm ashamed of that. I wish I knew, I wish I could speak French. either Parisian or Quebecois French. But yeah, you know what I'm talking about. When I say that Quebec, the Quebecois, they're a handful, right? They're a handful. I do admire the French Canadians, though, because they do. I mean, they are uncompromising on their culture, and they're very proud of their culture. And I think that the rest of Canada has something to learn from that. Rumbum says, just having a massive semiconductor facility coming to the States is a huge win. Don't think a lot of people even realize how awesome that is. I don't think a lot of people realize just how much business is moving to the United States. I mean, it's car companies, semiconductors. It's an enormous amount. Again, the American economy is going to be roaring in a year. Let's see. Let's see. Drama says, strange I was unfollowed and had to log out and refollow. Really? That's very strange. What, on Rumble? That shouldn't happen on Rumble. That's normal on YouTube. But Rumble, that shouldn't happen. Rumbum says, my bud lives there, and I've been speaking to her lately about moving there. And she says it's not bad. Looked at the housing market, and it looks great there. Yeah, I mean, housing is, at least it used to be a lot cheaper there. But Alberta's great. I love Alberta. Alberta's a fantastic place. Great people. It's really nice. I believe the property there is still a lot cheaper than, certainly than Toronto or Vancouver. Nevada says Trump will never give up on the border problems. Well, Canada just, the leaders here, they just don't want to listen, even though there has been a consistent message. Regardless of what the teleprompter readers read off their teleprompters, there has been a consistent message, and I've been showing that to you guys for, the last, couple of months. Let's see. All right, I'm going to skip to the end of the chat, and we'll get going with we'll keep going with the show. Let's see. Candle Monkey. So is this a show about volleyball? It is. Women's sports in general. Women's sports in general. And politics. And ranting. Let's see. JDL says East Germany should succeed. The funny thing is, where the AFD is popular? The anti-communist AFD. You know where they're popular? In Germany? East Germany. It's just like a big wall of AFD. It's not popular in West Germany. I mean, this shows the stupidity of just human folly, right? So the guys who had the wealthy society, right, up until the fall of the Berlin Wall, right, East Germany, poor and miserable, and people just lived in constant fear. That knock on the door, in the middle of the night. West, wealthy, free. People were trying to get out of East Germany to West Germany. West Germany becomes the commies. East Germany, who still remembers. They still have that cultural memory of it. Very much for the far right party, as they call them, the far right party, which they're not really. They're just normal. It's just human folly. Let's see. All right. All right, let's move on. I don't want to be going all night, for God's sakes. I'm going to get rid of a couple of tabs, though, because I got too many tabs going. All right. Okay, let's go to DOGE. So, just quickly here, Wall Street Apes. Representative Tim Burchett says he's willing to lose his job to tell us the real reason government officials are opposing Elon Musk and DOGE. I wonder if it's anything to do with them personally profiting. I wonder if it's anything to do with corruption. That can't be possible. Let's take a look.
We wanted to ask you about Elon Musk's message in there. What did he talk to you guys about? What was sort of the main message?
Well, we talked about specifics of areas that I don't want to discuss the specific parts of it, but it's very encouraging of the things that he's disclosing and where he's headed with this, because they haven't even really cracked the nut. You've got education in the Pentagon that are out there, and you know what time this thing started?
Is there any sort of conversation or pushback, from folks who are
they're going to push back because you've got congressmen on both sides of the aisle that if they follow that paper trail, it's going to come back to them. They got their wife and or girlfriend that works for some agency, quasi-agency or some business, and I'll probably get primary for saying that. I mean, that's the truth, and we all know it. And this town's crooked as a dog's leg. Somebody's going to straighten it out. Looks like it's going to be Elon Musk.
Did he give you guys his phone number like he did for the senators?
Crooked as a dog's leg. Well, I mean, it just been allowed for so long. It just became normal. Just normal part of doing business is what it appears to be. Let's see. All right, let's move on. So what do we got going on here? Billboard Chris has a good post here. And he's talking about Pierre Poilievre. And he's disappointed with him. And let's see what he has to say. Retaliatory tariffs hurt Canadians far more than Americans. They are nothing more than a tax we pay on imports into Canada. They drive up inflation and impact low-income Canadians the most. This is not opinion. It is hard statistical fact. It's about getting money, the money, the government extracting money, right, that they can use to then buy votes. All of our major political leaders know this, but they also know that they poll well when they pretend they are hurting America. Pierre Poilievre wants to differentiate himself from Trudeau and the Liberals by doing even more of what Trudeau wants to do. And the thing is, he had differentiated himself, and it didn't hurt him, right? He did what, conservative leaders, the previous two conservative leaders, particularly Aaron O'Toole in 2021, he did what they were afraid to do, which was differentiate himself, not be afraid of getting pushback from, a bought and paid for media that's going to hate him anyway. Here is a timeless rule of thumb. Whatever leftists want to do the opposite. Yes, Trump likes tariffs. He always has. Stopping fentanyl and increasing border security are important, of course, but they are also used as a justification for what he would be doing anyway. The tariffs are clearly a tool right now to bring business to the United States. That's what it is, and it's working. They are going there. Teleprompter readers will not admit that to you, but that's the truth. He wants more production in America. He slaps on tariffs and removes them days later because he knows tariffs hurt American industries. He also knows that the uncertain geopolitical outlook will cause more American companies to build in America, so he keeps the uncertainty going. There is method to the madness. I do think with Canada, there's something more at play, though. And when we hear the rhetoric about Fortress North America, not the 51st state, that's not going to happen. But Fortress North America, a greater kind of harmonization of border policies and also tariff policies, namely a united front against China. As usual, the only Canadian politician telling the truth about any of this is PPC leader Maxime Bernier. And he has been good on it. He has. You might remember him as the man who didn't want Canadians locked down and the man who was arrested for going outside in Manitoba, while all of our MPs in Ottawa supported lockdowns, travel restrictions, kids not going to school, and vaccine mandates. For this election, Pierre is still the favorite to be the next PM, but he's blowing an insurmountable lead. He needs to stop being liberal light. I can't disagree on this. He has potential to be good, but it's always just potential. He follows polls. He does not lead. He does not educate Canadians, and in so doing, move the window of political possibilities also known as the Overton window. And this is the thing, he had been doing that. He had been, especially on the woke. I mean, he's the first conservative in Canada who's actually come out and said, yeah, woke is bad. It's divisive. It's just meant to divide people. That's it. It's damaging to society. Let's see. So let's hear what Pierre Poilievre said, which made Billboard Chris angry. Poilievre says Trudeau is not going far enough with retaliatory tariffs against America. So the saber rattling, I don't think this is helpful, to be honest. We've already gone through that in the stream tonight. I understand why he's doing it, but I don't think this is very helpful. And it's just, again, copying the Liberals on this. I don't know. Let's start it over.
Hoping to get your reaction to the federal government's decision to not proceed or at least delay the counter tariffs, given President Trump's pause, and how you would interact with Mr. Trump, given how unpredictable he can be.
We need to keep the counter tariffs in place until the president removes all tariffs forever for Canadians. We can't have half measures. We have to send a clear message to President Trump that if he wants to fight, then we will fight back. We will defend our people and our country. So the president must remove all tariffs on Canadians before we remove counter tariffs on the Americans. My message to President Trump is you've got two options. One, you can attack our economy and we will fight back. Your consumers will pay more, your workers will make less. Both our economies will weaken, leaving less money for border security and defense on both sides of the border, and our enemies will grow stronger. Or you can knock it off and get back to the best trading relationship the world has ever seen, so that both our workers make more, our consumers pay less, our economies have more money for national defense and border security. We can stand up to our real enemies on the other side of the oceans, and America and Canada as two separate countries will be stronger, safer, and better off.
See, the problem with empty threats is that they're empty, right? Maybe this plays politically well. I mean, maybe he's right that this is what you have to do. Maybe this is the only option politically, right? We do need to get rid of the Liberals. I do want Trudeau. I mean, Pierre Poilievre is going to have a lot to prove when he gets in. First off, I mean, the whole thing with speech, I want him to strengthen free speech rights in Canada. He said he wants Canada to be the freest country in the world. I expect movement on that. That's incredibly important. In fact, it's the most important issue above anything. I mean, look, the Liberals and the NDP talked about criminalizing saying good things about fossil fuels, actually making that criminal, right? We got to take care of free speech. We don't have a First Amendment. Free speech rights need to be strengthened in Canada. And unfortunately, Bill C-63 is gone now. That's the one with the pre-crime where a judge could deem that you're probably going to do something. So now you got a year of house arrest. If you don't like that, well, we can just throw you in prison. I mean, that's real, right? That's what they really wanted to do, as well as life in prison for hate speech, whatever that is, amongst other just utterly insane dystopian things. So that needs to be strengthened. The Bill C-11, Bill C-18, the reason that you can't see Canadian news on any meta thing like Facebook or Instagram is because of Bill C-18, right? Bill C-11, which handed over control of the algorithm when they want it to the CRTC, a government body, to promote authentic Canadian content. And what do you think authentic Canadian content is? What do you think a bureaucracy, a big bureaucracy full of leftists is going to think is authentic Canadian content and what isn't, right? So those have to go right off the bat. He's promised to do that. And I'd like to see further moves to strengthen free speech rights in Canada. So he has to win. Just for that. For me, just for that, he has to win. Has to win. It would be a disaster for Canada if he does not. Then we need to put on the pressure for other things, right? But and my point is that maybe he has to, maybe this is the right move. right? I feel like it might be better to differentiate himself to be more cool-headed about it. I think the way the Canadian government is handling it right now, this is how it's handling it. He's just repeating the same rhetoric. I think it's a mistake. I think cooler heads should prevail. I think they should be cool, for God's sakes, and just work behind the scenes and not say too much. I think, and actually practice diplomacy, real diplomacy. But hey, I'm not in the government, so what can you do? I think Billboard Chris absolutely has a point. I like what Maxime Bernier has been saying on it. Much better. In fact, let's go check him out. Let's go to Maxime. Let's see if we can find something. Maxime Bernier, leader of the PPC, the People's Party of Canada. Will we finally stop freaking out every time Trump makes a new move? Yes, all these confusing moves are unsettling, but that's precisely why he's doing it, to attain his goals. This is what I've been saying. He's totally right, 100% right. How have we not learned this yet? Or are people just pretending to not know this? There's a pattern. Despite his claim that we don't need Canadian imports, Trump knows very well that American businesses and consumers need the oil, steel, aluminum, potash, uranium, auto parts, lumber, and many other products we sell them at a good price, and that they will be impacted negatively by tariffs that they, and not Canada, will have to pay. That's why he keeps postponing or adjusting them, while he never entirely removes his threats. Now, there have been some that have gone through, the stuff that's not covered under the U.S., Mexico, Canada trade deal. So there are some that have gone through. Although the fentanyl and migrant issues are important, I believe they are only a pretext. I think they're more than that. I think Trump wants to bring back investments and manufacturing to the U.S. He wants to be in a strong position to renegotiate the USMCA. He also knows that the longer-term central problem of the U.S. economy is the strong dollar, which makes imports cheap and U.S. exports less competitive. And the massive public debt financed by fiat money creation, again, thanks to the strong dollar and its status as the world's reserve currency. I believe his ultimate goal is to engineer a monetary reset that will see the dollar devalued and gold remonetized. There will be a global deal with Russia and China, which also want to de-dollarize and have been accumulating gold. I don't know about all of this. I think he's right that there's something else beyond this, right? This is a pattern we've seen with Trump. It's how he operates. He comes out, unsettles everybody, makes everybody nervous, the person across the table from him, and then settles down to something that he actually wants. And he finds it easier to get what he wants and maybe a bit more that way. Being hysterical about it is not the way to go, I don't think. Our political establishment are all hysterical drama queens who understand nothing of this. Well, that's right. All right. So, yeah, that's what I think about that. Oh, yeah. So there was a bit of a huff because Pierre Poilievre was invited on. Patrick Bet David at Valuetainment, and he didn't go. What's he saying here? Let's take a look.
Here's what's funny. Think about who, as a world leader, has a shittier resume than him and a worse approval rating. The fact that people are done with him. Mm-hmm. And even with that, Pierre Poilievre couldn't beat him.
That's what's the sad part.
Well, you know why it's not sad? Because
No, he's going to beat him, so he doesn't know what he's talking about here, but let's listen.
Time we invited Pierre, arrogant, pompous team, the only podcast he ever did is Jordan Peterson. So let me get this straight. You saw Millet win because he went everywhere. You saw Bukele win, he went everywhere. You saw Trump win because he went everywhere. You saw Bobby win because he went everywhere. You saw Vivek become a superstar because he went everywhere. And you deserve losing. And you didn't win. And I said that to Canadians who love him. The candidate you adore and admire and love doesn't want to work. God forbid he has to cross the border and go talk.
Well, I think this is a little bit childish. I got to be honest. I mean, how big is Valuetainment? I mean, I know it's big in the States. Is it big in Canada? Now, if you were invited on Joe Rogan, I would say he's got to do that. Absolutely 100%. He's got to do that. Got to go on Joe Rogan, right? If you were invited, he would have. If he were invited to Joe Rogan and didn't go, I would say that's a massive mistake. I'm not so sure that much, to be honest. There's that much to gain from this. I mean, look, Chrystia Freeland went on Bill Maher. Mark Carney went on The Daily Show, famously, right? Two American shows. I think you can make the point of obvious kind of hypocrisy, boycott the United States, especially, well, Chrystia Freeland, this is after, the tariff thing's in full swing going down there. Well, she wants to boycott the United States, but not boycott her appearance on an American show. Doesn't look totally great. I would say that if it was Joe Rogan, he would have to go. That would be a massive mistake. But I also do think that Pierre should be doing more podcasts, right? And he has done some. He's done interviews with like Brian Lilly and stuff. There's not that many huge ones that would really work. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not really upset that he didn't go on this, because I'm not sure that this would have much impact in Canada anyway. And I think his response here is a little over the top. I mean, frankly, I don't know. I mean, is Patrick Bet-David that big of a deal to be so insulted? So what is Wyatt Claypool here? And I like Wyatt Claypool. I don't agree with everything he says, but he's got a good channel. I think he's only on YouTube, unfortunately, but let's see. So what does he say? Patrick Bet-David is one of these podcast bros who has zero clue about anything he talks about, but he has a big appetite for clout chasing. Why would Pierre Poilievre go on a podcast whose audience has not much overlap in Canada, and whatever overlap it does have is mostly people already voting Conservative? I cannot stand people who think it's an insult to them to not want to go on their podcast. I wonder now if Patrick threatens to attack people publicly if they don't go on his show. LOL, his American viewers must be confused as to why he is ranting about Pierre. Well, most Americans don't know who Pierre Poilievre is. The ones who watch the show do, for sure. Most Americans have no idea who Mark Carney is or Chrystia Freeland or Pierre Poilievre. They have no idea. The only politician they would know would be Justin Trudeau, because he's so infamous for being such a fool. But I think he's more or less correct here. I mean, like the real win with Trump's podcast appearances is that he was just reaching neutral audiences. Like Joe Rogan audience is not a far right audience, right? There's a lot of non-political people on there that watch it, right? It's not like a politics channel. It's UFC. It's like archaeologists, all kinds of stuff, right? Politics is a small part of it. That was the value of going on there, is reaching a bunch of people that he wasn't reaching before. People who weren't going to be really interested. They're not going to go look for it, right? For politics. That was the value. Theo Von, same thing, right? He was reaching audiences that needed to see him, that didn't know anything about him, right? Patrick Bet-David, the people that would watch that would be already voting Conservative. I think right now, I don't know, it is hypocritical to say, oh, we're going to, boycott things and then go and immediately, as soon as it's advantageous, go and take advantage like Chrystia Freeland did. So what I would like is to see Pierre Poilievre on more podcasts. I think he should do a ton of them. But, pick the right. I mean, Trump didn't just go on every podcast. I'm sure that his people said no to some. All right. What are you guys saying? Let's get to the chat. Actually, you know what? I need to take a break for a second. I need to make some more rant juice. What are we gonna? How about some hockey? Let's watch some hockey. All right. Yeah, give me a couple of minutes, you guys. I'll be right back. And actually, before I go, I think I'll cut off the YouTube part of this now. Yeah, it's over an hour and a half. All right. So if you're watching on YouTube right now, come please join us over on Rumble. The app is probably like really close. Barely have to move your finger on if you're watching Roku or Smart TV or whatever. Just come to Rumble. You can watch the rest of the show. We'll be going for at least a couple more hours. So join us over there. I want you to know on YouTube, even though we're cutting off the show right now for just obvious CommieTube censorship reasons, you are valued and you are loved on Radio Baloney. And the Rumble audience would love to see you. So come join us over here. Otherwise, we'll see you on Sunday. That feels better.